Hi, everyone. We are safe. All of our people are safe. All of our animals are now safe. We are nowhere near the risky areas anymore. We did have to evacuate due to the Aspen Acres fire. Please pray for rainfall at any or all of the many areas of our country that are on fire, as well as the first responders who have literally given their lives at this point. Also, please strongly reconsider any kind of firework or risk of fire in your celebrations this weekend. Hopefully, you can tell I'm in the spirit of the season. U.S. plays today for World Cup. I'm excited to celebrate, but we could really use all hands on deck um, in a lot of different places right now. I did want to start out with the most important stuff in case somebody doesn't have the time or bandwidth to check the whole video. I get that. That's cool. Anyway, I do want to thank each and every one of you for your support. It's awesome. Uh, your support is more important than ever, or at least support from non-distressed areas is more important than ever. And I say that because the lion's share of support for this ministry comes from areas, probably people who have evacuated already or are loading, they already have a car loaded up in case they get the call. So in the description of the video, as well as the email, I've included the normal methods of support are sufficient. They're great. Um, I don't need to set up a GoFundMe or anything. I'm blessed to already have systems in place. This is a fluid challenge for the time being. Our house is still standing. I feel lots of spiritual peace, but we were already in financial, it wasn't going great. We didn't know how we were going to pay our bills this month. We've been in that position before many times and weren't necessarily concerned, but this does add extra expenses. And we'll update more as we get more clarity, or when we do get the call that it is safe to go back and see what's there. So now the short story long. Sunday evening, my family left for ballet camp, so all the people other than myself were already safe. Monday morning I wake up to a notification really early saying there's a 2-acre fire at Aspen Acres. And at that point, the data was kind of screwy, so the map was wrong. But by the afternoon, the fire had reached 23,000 acres. And I was at the church like in a late morning, and I could see flames physically from the physical church building, which is 5 minutes from our house. So the fire grew really fast. I had to evacuate not long after that mid-morning meeting. I was stomach sick, so evacuating was difficult. And the writing was on the wall. So as I would move through the house, I would kind of just set things that seemed difficult to replace, like this jersey even. And they're just harder to replace than my other shirts or whatever. So like I would just set stuff in a backpack or on, near the exits, so that when it did come in, I was able to get out quickly and just move to trying to gather animals. I was only able to, I left behind 3 puppies and 12 chickens. Officials have now actually gone to our property and gotten them to shelters. So most of our animals, or our 3 adult dogs, and 7 of the puppies were already at some friends who are great with animals, and we always call them when we have questions about our dogs anyway. They were already there. Now, the chickens and the other puppies are at a shelter in Pueblo. I'm including photos. The photos are basically, so where we live is a very wooded area. So I sent the pictures to a friend of mine who actually ended up working at the Forest Service and knows a ton more about this stuff than I do. But he was like, "Oh, sweet. So there's big grass clearings." I was like, it's not really what it's like here. But it's like if I were standing at my mailbox it's just wooded trees, right? So to take this picture, I drove about a quarter mile up the dirt road just to get to where there is a clearing, because there's a ranch down the street. And so you could just see far enough to see the smoke. So you can see how dense the smoke was when I was evacuating, once I had actually loaded everything up and started driving away. I have a ton of spiritual peace um, for a lot of reasons. I mean, this year, my in-laws took us to Florida. My parents sent us to Los Angeles to. We just God has provided ways for us to do things that we wouldn't have been able to do um, otherwise if it wasn't just straight up His hand. And also, there's a favorable wind in my experience, right? I've been, trying to get whatever data I could, and the conclusive thing from official sources or even AI is just like, we're not going to guess what the weather's going to do. Fires are unpredictable. Stay safe. Don't go back. And it's like, I'm not trying to go back. Just tell me, what are the odds my house is going to be there when I go back, or when it is safe to go back or whatever. And they just won't answer. But I also have lived there for a few years, and I know what it feels like to be in the yard, and it generally feels like the wind blows from the west southwest. And I can't think of a single experience where I felt it blowing the opposite direction. And considering our town and where the flames currently are, and our property, our house, the church building, most of my friends' properties and homes and things, that is favorable. And that's been the case. We have terrible, terrible conditions for fire. The day it started, Monday, which is part of why it spread so fast. Tuesday as well. I'm not sure. I think it's Tuesday right now. Wednesday is predicted it's the same. And it's gotten to the point where the official report this morning was basically, more detailed than this, but they're essentially waiting for rain to help slow this thing down, because big embers will make the fire jump. I'm not a fire professional, but I think if the big embers can make the fire leap, I can't remember the terminology they use, but they described it as going way far out beyond the fire line. So now if we have humans trying to fight the fire line, now they're fighting a two-front war and run the risk of getting consumed by the fire, which did happen over the weekend at a different fire. Ours, I think, started Monday, maybe late Sunday, I'm not sure. All this stuff, I was starting out with spiritual peace. I have an outline in this, like, spiritual peace is the next thing. And it is, the wind is favorable. And as of this morning, thanks to the officials that got the last of our animals, we have all our animals, all our people. I have a couple photo albums, a couple guitars. I grabbed a few things, right? So, if the worst happens, we have each other. And if I have no home to go back to, which I doubt, again, spiritual peace, some logical brain, wind stuff there. But if all that does happen, I'm confident that God has something in store for us that would ultimately be better. Maybe not in the next few months, but eventually, all ships would rise and we would still be following Him, and He'd be doing cool stuff. So we'll follow Him wherever He sends us. This is a challenge right now. This Sunday, we already had planned to gather in a park because the weather in the mountains is nice around this time of year, or rather just not real snowy and cold, And so I'm confident we'll still gather. We might have to change parks or, modify the plan slightly. All this to say, one of the things I plan on doing this week specifically, I think has honestly been brewing for a while. I think lately I've noticed my hands have been out in a position of give me, I want, take, like, whoa, God, where are you? Right? Because this year saw so many, the worship team is way down on volunteers and just skilled people everywhere. I'm blessed for the people we do have. And that we are able to worship each week. And not all of it was necessarily spiritual warfare. A lot of it was just good. I don't know if the lion's share was I would quantify as good or bad or whatever, but not all of it was necessarily the dark, scary things. We had a lead singer who was just awesome, and she got married and moved to another state. What a great reason to go. That's awesome. But then like lots of other stuff too, like straight up cancer, health issues that are just chronic and brutal. And I've been crying out to God for a long time now for my team and the hearts and minds around them and their physical health. And not just my team, the whole valley, the whole area, you know, people in our church and out of our church, just all kinds of stuff. Just, man, our valley struggles with self-harm, teens, kids. Oh, just awful stuff, right? But you know, you cry out in faith and you pray in faith and then you wait in faith and it goes on and on and on. And eventually you start to go, God, where are you? God, where are you? And I feel more and more like a child asking, like, give me back my home, give me back my chickens, give me back my dogs. Don't let me lose whatever, my stuff, my things, my ashes, right? My dust and my ashes. And so this week as we worship, I want us to do something that we've done once before as a congregation, and I've done it with other bodies in other places as I've led worship, but it's literally to sing the one line, holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come. And that line by itself over and over again for at least 3-4 minutes. It'd be nice to do that for 30, I think, and that's it. That's all we did. You know, have a service where we gather, we sing that for an hour, we eat some food, and that's it. But I want to do it instead of one of our songs this week because in the book of Revelation, the angels sing this. God has 4 angels singing it, seemingly for eternity, because it pleases him. And so I want myself first and the rest of the team and the whole congregation that gathers to do something pleasing as unto the Lord, to help me remember that I gather and I put my hands out not to see what I can take from God and get from a genie in a bottle, but instead to try and give something from here that is pleasing as unto him. That's my update. Thanks for watching. Much love. I'll keep you guys posted. I'm sure that eventually we'll get the roads are clear and we can get back or whatever. It's safe enough to go see what's around. Like I said, tons of spiritual peace. But just be praying for that stuff we said at the top, the first responders, the rain. I think rain anywhere is valuable. I've checked the reports for our fire specifically. It says maybe Sunday. But I figure any good rain on any of these big fires should free up resources eventually. People need to take their time off and stuff, but eventually that should free up resources to help us out more locally as well. Much love. Happy holidays. Bye.